Trying to decide whether that new game is worth your $60? Or maybe you're just wondering if an old game is worth your time. Well, you came to the right place. This is the only podcast that tries to answer the question,
should I buy it, though?
Welcome, my child. You've fallen, haven't you? The sound of this podcast fills you with determination because it is Should I Buy It, Though? And I'm Giancarlo Herrera. Hello, everyone.
Oh, Nikki B flexes in.
TJ Barry on the ones and twos.
I'm Napster Bluke.
I'm Nick Palazzo.
Don't be boring. Out of everyone here, Nick, are you serious right now?
I subverted all your expectations, right?
You're the worst. The worst.
And this week, all of us except Nicholas Palazzo are reviewing Undertale.
No, let me in, please. I need to.
Let me in.
You have to come up with a fun intro, or else you're not allowed.
I can't. My brain is about to explode for the next hour, so I need to save energy.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the show. This week we have played the much beloved indie game Undertale. Many of us for the first time, I think, or at least a few of us for the first time. I guess for context, this was my first time playing the game, and guess what? I think I'm the only person here who can say that as of today, I have beat the game 3 times on every main pathway.
Yeah.
That is respectable. I respect that. This is not my first time experiencing the game, but I've only ever watched the game, but I've seen all the runs, and I rewatched it for the review today.
Yeah, I mean, I watched that. And as someone who deals with video games and children, I know quite a bit about Undertale.
This was my first time playing the game, and I played it twice. Yep, that's what I did.
I played this game, I want to say like a year after it came out. Oh, I did 2 out of 3 of the major runs, because I was too much of a weenie to do the third one. But since then,
then you watched me do it, and the game called you out for it.
It did, and we'll talk about that. But I've seen multiple playthroughs since then, because this is actually my 5th favorite video game of all time. I love it to death. Yep.
Is it fair to say you're the doctor of this review on Undertale?
I would say I have a bachelor's degree in it, because there's so much to it that I think it would take forever to get my doctorate.
Very well.
I think I'm the doctor because I'm the only one that finished all of it.
Ooh.
But how much secrets do you know?
I know a few with the help of our undergraduate researchers on stream. We discovered quite a few.
Undergraduate.
Shout outs, honestly.
Shouts out.
Yeah, honestly, if you guys haven't seen the streams, of course we stream pretty much every game that we do on here. And I was streaming all of the gameplay for Undertale, and we were joined by a number of wonderful people in chat who pointed out lots of wonderful secrets and led us in many interesting directions. So shout out to all of our wonderful viewers who were hanging out with us for pretty much like a week straight playing this game.
Thank you guys.
I'm gonna pass it off to my undergraduate colleague Nicholas Palazzo, and allow you to open this review for us. Where do you want to start?
Well, before we jump into the game, the first thing I wanted to mention is a big amount of praise I want to throw in the direction of the creator of this game, creator singular, because most of this game was done entirely by one person. With the exception of a few of the character designs. His name's Toby Fox. He directed this game. He programmed it, developed it. He did all the musical composition for it, the art design. The only thing he didn't do entirely was a couple of the character designs, which, a little fun fact for you guys, if you don't know, there's a character in the game who is based off of the real-life person that designed some of these characters, and that character is Temmie. Temmie is a real-life person, and she did a lot of the design for some of the characters, including Temmie herself. So, this is and you can see it in the game, it is a huge passion project with a lot of care and meticulous detail put into every inch of the game. There's a reason for everything, and that is pretty much all done by this one guy, Toby Fox. And he didn't do it in RPG Maker, it was a different program, but it was one of those
Game Maker.
Game Maker. He did in Game Maker, just one of those basic. He didn't have a lot of tools to work with. It's not a AAA game; it's an indie game, and what he was able to produce through just his brain and Game Maker is, I think it's fabulous. I think he's one of the most creative and intelligent people in all of gaming.
I have a question for the graduate.
Okay.
Is this game inspired by Earthbound?
It is, yeah. It is heavily inspired by Earthbound.
Yeah, it feels very much like that game.
Yeah, he loved that game, so a lot of this is inspired by that. And he actually worked on, I want to say, like mods for it in like the mid-2000s for Earthbound. So he was very familiar with the coding of it as well, which probably helped him out in the programming realm when it came to making Undertale.
And just in case, if you don't know what Earthbound is, that's where Lucas and Ness from Smash Brothers, that's the game they come from.
A lot of traditional old school RPGs, Nintendo games inspired the making of Undertale, but Earthbound was the main
and you can tell.
Absolutely.
It's in the DNA of the game. So for those of you who may not be familiar with this game, the easiest way I guess I can explain this is you play as a human child who falls into this place called the Underground that is full of monsters, and essentially you're trying to get home. How you decide to do that and everything after that is really up to you. There are very, very different paths, and there's a lot to uncover in this game. But yeah, that's the premise of it. And as Palazzo was saying, it draws a lot from those kind of old school RPGs. It feels like a classic Nintendo game, kind of everything really, from design to combat to even just the square aspect ratio it runs in. It's a very unique game in the modern gaming space, I think. I don't know that I've experienced anything that is quite like this. Especially the deeper you kind of get into it, there's so much more to this game than I anticipated.
Absolutely. I don't know why I didn't make this connection when I first played it, but did you guys get the vibe that it's kind of like it's almost like a darker Pixar movie, and the art style, the humor, just different things like that, how characters interact with each other, character personalities. It's very Pixar, I feel like. I don't know if you guys agree with that.
As a Pixar aficionado, I don't know that I made that connection, but I think I can see where you draw those lines.
I mean, no, it's totally different in storytelling and all those aspects, but I just thought, it's kind of cute like that. I don't know.
It is definitely cute, but I do think that it gets a little bit darker than Pixar would.
Oh, absolutely.
It gets very dark.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's super dark, but
I wouldn't say
crosses.
Eerie.
super dark.
Depending on the
Yeah.
order that you played things in, it can be downright depressing, especially if you did it the way I did.
Which always hits you harder when a cute thing becomes so dark and depressing and eerie.
Leading into what you may start talking about, every aspect of this game is intertwined with each other. It's difficult to talk about story without talking about gameplay, without talking about characters and how they're written, without talking about how the game responds to you as a player. So whichever direction we begin with right now, we're going to end up talking about those things as they come. So it's going to be fun. So yeah.
Which kind of leads to, I think, my first opening point. As far as a review is concerned, someone who's considering buying this game, if you're going to buy this game, you cannot play it once. You cannot, listen to me, hold up, I don't think you understood that. It's not you shouldn't only play it once. If you're going to buy this game, you cannot play it only one time. You are not playing the game if you only play it one time.
Completely agree.
Yes. And I say this as someone who, I finished my first run of the game, and I was like, cool, I guess that was it. I had no intention of ever opening that game again. And then the very end of the initial run happened, and I was like, well, I have to. And also, I know people on stream wanted to see it, which is what encouraged me to do all 3 playthroughs and stuff like that. But the first run of the game may as well just be a tutorial. You hardly get any story. You hardly get any of the really cool sections in their full glory, the way that they are when you revisit it, trying to accomplish certain tasks. Yeah, I don't know. How does everyone feel about that aspect for this game? It's not terribly long. My first playthrough, I want to say, was about 7. You can really do a playthrough in about 5 hours, depending on how good you are at certain things. But how do we feel about this kind of, the whole way that this game kind of dares you to play it again, almost?
I don't want to take up too much time. I want the other people to jump in too, but super quick. This game sort of has like a Bloodborne effect where most players will not get everything they need to get on the first playthrough. And even me personally, I did not love this game the first time I played it. It wasn't until I played it a second time where I fell in love with it. I liked it. I'm like, oh, that was fun. That was neat. That was different. But I didn't get everything I needed to get until I played it a second time. It's like Bloodborne in that you're not going to get every piece of the story, every piece of the lore. You're not going to understand these characters until you go back with the information of a first playthrough. And then you go back and that's the second playthrough is where you really learn what the game is about, because the game reacts with you on your first and second playthrough. And if you start to pick up those connections to how you've played the game, then I think that's where the magic happens for the player. Like, oh, this is super cool. I know what's going on. I know what this is. I'm starting to grasp what this is about. So, yeah.
I agree, and I don't want to give away my feelings too quickly in this episode, but I think it's safe for me to say that at the end of my first playthrough, I was pretty confident that this was going to be a do not buy for me. Like, probably over 90% confident that, considering everything I experienced, and I'm not saying I hated the game, that's not what I'm saying, but as far as buy or do not buy, I was pretty certain it was a do not buy.
That's fair.
And then subsequent playthroughs have really complicated that. We'll get into why and how I feel about it now on the other end of 3 playthroughs. But yeah, that's why I say, like, you really can't leave it on that first playthrough, because you really don't experience what the game actually is at its core.
Yeah, I agree. You're just not getting enough. You're missing too much if you played only once.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And I think it's really funny because I really was planning on just playing it once until I was playing with John on the phone with me, and he, like, I was ready to just, like, keep quitting towards what I thought was the end of the game. And I was like, okay, like, I'm gonna do this and then I'm just gonna quit. He's like, no, yes, but, like, no. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what could possibly be coming after this? Like, this is the final fight. This is done. Oh, how naive. How stupid am I? So yeah, no, and I mean, technically you don't have to do anything. You don't have to play another game, but it's kind of like you're not really playing the game then if you're not going to do it that next time. You know what I mean?
You're not even getting your high school diploma if you only play it
like
once.
you're
Let alone be undergraduate.
It's just like at that point, it's if you only played it that first time, it's kind of like why? Well, it's not really worth it, I want to say. I think you said it best with it really is just like an introduction to the game.
Yeah. Which honestly is something that would normally, like, turn me off in concept it's cool, but to hear someone tell you that you have to play a game once to finish the tutorial and then you have to go back and do it again, like, that does not sound particularly enticing unless you're already hooked on the gameplay, you know?
Yeah, I will say though, like, at the same time, just because, like, you did it all once, so you know you can do it again. And honestly, like, it was
way easier.
I found it was once you have the hang of it, like, it goes by super quick.
And that's the pro and con about this concept of multiple playthroughs in this game. The pro is that everything about the first playthrough is super intentional. The game wants it doesn't want to tell you to play it again. It doesn't want to tell you to not play it again. It wants to give you a feeling of conflict of, I feel kind of empty by the end of this, and I don't have a lot with me by the end of the first playthrough. I'm going to go do it again. I have this feeling. I have determination to go and experience the second playthrough in a completely different way to try to achieve what the game is kind of leading you to achieve. Or it's super intentional, and some players will just say, okay, that was cute. That was fun. I have no interest in picking this up again. It's a choice. It's a weird choice, because why wouldn't you want certain players to not play it again? But it's that moral conflict the whole game is leading you up to. But the con of it is the game has been out so long, so a lot of people are privy to the concept of, oh, there's different ways to play this game. So they have that in their head all the way through. And I wish a lot of people would just play this completely blind so they could experience those emotions without being tainted with, I have to play the game this way or I have to play this game, you know?
And that's perfectly valid. Unfortunately, it's also just kind of the reality of the world we live in.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, it's me again with a couple of quick announcements that I think you're gonna want to hear. First off, we want to give a thank you to our patrons Ann Baird and Jerry Benetatos for helping to support the show. If you're listening and wondering how you can support the show, please go to whimsicproductions.com or go to patreon.com/shouldIbuy. Next, we are very excited to say that we are going to be doing a giveaway of the upcoming Avengers game. Anyone is eligible to enter this giveaway, and we will be purchasing a code for the game for the platform of your choice and sending that to you. The rules are very simple. I am about to pose a question to you. In the show notes for this episode, there are links to both a Reddit thread and a tweet. You may choose whichever post you like, and go and respond to that post with the answer to said question. And that's all you have to do. We will be choosing a winner at random, and we will give you the game code for the new Avengers game the day before the game releases so that you can start playing it at midnight if you want, right alongside us on our stream. Now that you know how to enter, the question you must answer is, what percentage of a plan do you have? That said, if you're looking for other ways to support the show, please consider listening to our other podcast, Dungeons and Drimbus, the D&D actual play show that we think a lot of you would love. We're in the middle of a really interesting arc with special guest Tozamon. And if you do enjoy our content on either podcast, please consider going to write a short review on the podcast app of your choice, as it really helps to get the show recommended to more people. Good luck in the giveaway. The question is, what percentage of a plan do you have? Go post the answer on either the tweet or the Reddit thread, and may the odds be ever in your favor. Enjoy the rest of the episode. Now that we've explained that, yeah, you're probably going to want to go through this game a number of times, let's talk about what you actually do over the course of the game. The meat and potatoes of this game is combat, which takes a variety of different forms. Combat and a lot of flavor text. Flavor text is kind of what makes the game, because it's a lot of reading. You're getting to know these characters, and there's amusing different things that the game tells you, either in response to actions or just things that you can encounter and little secrets you can uncover. So essentially, the game gives you the option to fight or to act. And so fight is basically not really a quick time event, but what would you call that?
No, yeah, I would say quick time event. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of like a quick time event. You're stopping a needle at the right time to land hit. You know, if you land it in the center, you do more damage. Mm-hmm. And honestly, that combat, the straight up the fighting is very straightforward. You might get some weapons or like little accessories or whatever that affect how you do that, but generally you're kind of always doing the same thing. Conversely, you have the act, which basically allows you to converse with people. Because a big point of the game is that you can either, kill things or you can show them mercy. And so through that act, you hopefully find something that unlocks you being able to show that mercy to whatever you are fighting in that moment. And then the other half of combat, because it is turn-based, is you're essentially dodging things.
The bullet hell.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bullet hell kind of puzzle. You play as the little heart that you can move around the box. Certain enemies can apply some effects to you, but mostly you're just dodging projectiles that are different for each enemy and usually unique to their shtick. Each enemy has a shtick, and enemies pop up multiple times in the way that kind of like Pokemon do, where you don't see them in the overworld, but they'll just bump into, you'll get the alert and suddenly you enter a battle. The combat is very Pokemon-esque in that way. I'm curious how you all felt about the combat.
To me, it kind of scares me away from playing the game.
Yes.
Because at first it's not so bad, but it gets so much worse. Just looking at it gives me anxiety. and doesn't engage me at least not as much as the mercy path, the finding the different acts with the different flavor text that I found way more interesting than actually fighting.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think the mercy's more interesting overall. Because you get to read different things and there are funny reactions from the enemies and stuff like that. And because the combat is the same thing over and over, like it honestly gets a little boring. But even then, like the Mercy, when you're fighting the same enemies time and time again, overall, and I think this is a big reason of why I didn't necessarily love my first playthrough of the game. Like the gameplay of the game is honestly kind of boring.
That's what I got. That's what I gathered from watching. Yeah.
With the exception of certain bosses who do like interesting mechanics and you're like, oh my god, what is this? And so suddenly you're like, you're tense and you're on the edge of your seat just trying to survive. But with the exception of that, honestly, it's kind of a boring game as far as the mechanics.
As gameplay wise, maybe. Game mechanics wise.
Actually, I would totally agree. I think the weakest part of this game is actually the video game part of it. The utilizing either the fight mechanic or the bullet hell. However, I do think the amount of story and intentional narrative that is injected into the gameplay makes it that much more interesting, and the mechanics that are utilized within the bullet hell make it more enjoyable to experience. And I just want to touch on really quickly about, I hate Druckmann has made this a bad term, but the subversion of expectations, right? Because you do have the fight mechanic or the act/mercy mechanic if you choose. And for traditional RPGs, you as a gamer, you're trained to think, oh, there's a monster in front of me, fight, kill, do that sort of thing. But this game is actively trying to force you to unlearn that concept of, no, maybe that's not what you have to do. Or if you do that, then why did you do that? And how is the world going to respond to that? And I think that concept of subverting the gamer's expectations literally is fascinating. And we'll talk about breaking the fourth wall later, but in a way, the game actively breaks the fourth wall in how you approach it. And I think that's the interesting part of the gameplay, although the bullet hell and the quick time event for fighting it's not that fun to do for the most part.
I will say it's the most unique bullet hell I've ever seen, like mechanics wise, and I still appreciate how much work he put into trying to make it unique and engaging.
Right.
To me, bullet hell itself just isn't that interesting.
No, I don't think it is either. But I think it's deliberate in making you feel almost helpless, because some of those bullet hell sections can be brutal, like really relentlessly brutal. But that's the feeling you as the player are supposed to get, because you're not fighting back. You are choosing to not do anything other than run away and avoid as long as you can the problem in front of you, you know? And I think that's a cool concept if you know the story of the game.
Well, one, as far as like the brutality of certain sections, absolutely. I think that this game may be some of the toughest challenges of the games I've played that I've ever overcome within a video game, for certain specific sections. And doubly so, I think that regardless of necessarily how fun or interesting the actual gameplay mechanics are, I think once you get past that first playthrough and certain things about the way the game operates are revealed to you, all of a sudden there's a lot more intentional narrative weight behind every action you take, whether that is violence or non-violence or what have you. And that keeps it interesting. Unfortunately, you got to get through the first gameplay of it just kind of being meh, to then be like, oh wow, this is actually kind of cool.
And those few Palazzo, you were touching on the fourth wall breaking mechanics, I very much appreciate. I find that really cool, really fascinating, and I kind of wish I would see more games. I know of very few other games that do that kind of stuff.
The other big one that I think you guys should check out is Doki Doki Literature Club. That's the only other game I've seen that
there's not a lot of gameplay in that.
No, but in terms of how they approach the fourth wall breaks, they're similar. So what Nick was saying, this game has a lot of fourth wall breaking moments, especially in the humor. And that's honestly my favorite kind of humor in movies, TV. If it breaks the fourth wall, I'm like, all right, that got me. I think that's funny. And that's part of the character's charm. We'll talk about the characters later. But this game, there's a slogan that comes with Undertale through the years. It says Undertale remembers, and that concept is so true because you can't save scum in this game, because if you make a choice, you're like, oh, I didn't like how that played out, let me go back. There's character dialogue that reacts to you save scumming. Sometimes it's deliberate and very forceful, shoving down your throat like, haha, I know you did this, you stupid asshole, you save scum. But there's also there's subtle moments of dialogue changing between playthroughs or save states that is very, sometimes you might not pick up on it, but if you do, it almost sends a chill down your spine of, oh, it's like the game's talking to me, not the character. It's talking to me as a player.
Yeah.
And it's cool. It's super cool.
Toby's really smart. He like, when it comes to knowing what the player is thinking and knowing what the player is going to do next, he's so smart. He can predict the player usually pretty well. And there's always some response to almost anything you do.
Yeah, different branching scenarios of what a player could choose to do. He has an answer for it. It's crazy cool.
And a lot of the big narrative call-outs, like when you get to big moments in the game where like someone's monologuing at you or whatever, a lot of times like it feels like a personal attack on the player. As far as like characters remembering and stuff, you can see that in I think like the first 20 minutes of part 1 of our stream, because I accidentally quit the game without meaning to, and I had to start over from the beginning. And the characters were like, "Hey, why are you making me introduce myself again?" And I'm like, "What?" So that was interesting, but then particularly on subsequent playthroughs, especially in the order that I went through each of the endings, it could get kind of eerie at points, and if not eerie, then just sad, because I obtained knowledge about some things that then made me reluctant to do other things in other playthroughs, but because I was trying to achieve these endings, I did it, and the game kind of, like, it knew, it was like, I bet you didn't even, you say that you don't want to do that. And like stuff like that, like just the way that it calls you out is so smart.
And the order on which you do the playthroughs, the game knows which order you're doing it in.
Yes.
Because, John, if you start with the last playthrough that you did first, you have to delete your save file. I think the game file from the computer in order to completely reset the game. However, it still remembers that you played through that playthrough, and the game reacts to remembering that you did that, but it's very, very subtle.
Technically, there are 5 endings to the game, or I guess there are more along the way, but like 5 branches, but some of them are minutia like that, where it's like it's the regular ending you would get with a playthrough, but there's a little detail change to account for the fact that it remembers things that you did before. And it's why, like, I've read after the fact, after I finished all 3, I was looking up, and like I remember some people saying like, oh, my friend went for the good ending after doing like the quote unquote bad ending and was so happy, and then when this thing happened at the end, almost burst into tears. Like, it's no joke. So okay, I guess let's talk about characters and emotional impact, I guess, because the characters, especially on first brush for me, a lot of them were kind of quirky and I liked them. There were a few that I was like, oh man, I feel bad for you, like a little bit like that, but nothing too crazy. And then on subsequent playthroughs, as the game kind of reveals more of the narrative, because there are entire gameplay sections that are basically not accessible to you in most circumstances on an initial playthrough, and you learn so much more, and it changes your perspective on everything. And I found, like, I was shocked at how emotionally resonant a lot of the story beats were. In particular, one thing that I won't spoil, but for me was resonant throughout the subsequent, the last 2 playthroughs I did, seeing how I did it the second time, and then the alternate version of it the third time that gave me wildly different emotions, and honestly made me reluctant to engage with certain aspects of the game, because I just didn't want to see some things happen.
Yeah. Again, very deliberate, because you don't get that emotional side of it until you do a second playthrough. And the reason for that is because of the quality of the characters and their writing. Your entire first playthrough really is a discovery of the characters and their personalities, and essentially you falling in love with all of them. You're gonna laugh at their dialogue, the kooky characters, all of that, and that is so you get attached to them when and if you do the second playthrough, and that's where the emotion comes in, because you love all these characters so much. You are determined. Again, determination's a huge theme in this. Morality and love, they're all huge themes in this game, and friendship, all the basic anime ones.
I was gonna say
all the basic anime tropes, but it does it in a clever way, and not in a shove in your face way, you know?
Yeah,
and a lot of the
much.
humor and the charm in your first playthrough transitions into emotion and connection in the second one, and it's very well crafted. It's really good.
Yeah, and I will say, to touch on the writing, I think it's fantastic writing. There's no voice acting in this game, unfortunately. They kind of try to approach that by using fonts and like intonating
Sounds.
the kind of the beeps of the dialogue. I forgot what those are. There's an actual term for it, but I can't remember what they're called right now.
that's the sound sample or something.
Yeah.
Like in Animal Crossing.
Exactly. I'm trying to remember. Polygon actually has a really great video on how games use that, and but I can't remember what the actual term is called, but that's besides the point. So there's no voice acting in this game, but they still do a good job of giving the characters life in a way where you can almost kind of hear them in your head, through the mix of those sounds, the fonts, the music, the writing, and everything. But for the sake of the stream, I was voicing the characters because I don't know, I guess that's what you do. And I just want to say that, like, as writing, like, I felt like I was reading a play. Like, it was excellent. I was invested. Like, I felt like I was in character as all these people. Like, it was, it was really good writing, especially for being, considering that this one dude did everything in this game. I was like, wow, like, I have a strong sense of character. Like, it has heavy emotional beats. The pacing is pretty good. Like, all of it. I was like, you could turn this into a series of some sort. You know, I can see why people love to watch others play this game.
I agree. The story is fantastic. It is very deliberately written with love and care. That just speaks more to the brilliance of the construction of this game, I think.
So next, the gameplay varies greatly based on the path that you're on. We've touched on this a number of times, but especially depending on the goals, like the way that you engage with things are going to be very different. And the scenario itself will, it'll be aware of what you're trying to do, and it'll present new gameplay scenarios, I suppose. And so I'm curious for everyone how you found difficulty in this game. I found that certain runs were more challenging than others, but overall not terribly difficult. And then you get to certain areas where it felt like it really ramped up. Never insurmountably so, but still enough to be a significant challenge, with the exception of in one run, there's a few things actually that are very, very difficult. But again, I think that's by design. It's making a narrative point, so it didn't necessarily bother me. But I'm curious what your experience was as players, just how you encountered your struggle with the game and difficulty and stuff like that.
Honestly, I wouldn't say the game was difficult. I think, especially, like the beginning, Toriel's literally like holding your hand through it. Even in like combat, the characters, it's very clever because they tell you essentially how to beat them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you just have to make sure like you're actually reading into what they're saying, and some of the dialogue is even like color coded, so you kind of pick up what they're putting down. And sometimes it got me and I was just stumped, and I'm like, how am I supposed to get past this? Like, for example, with Undyne, I was like, how am I? And then, dying and then respawning and then reading it again and being like, I'm an idiot. Like, I am such an idiot. And then I finally figured out how to do it, and then you get past it, and voila, it's awesome. Great. So overall, like, difficulty, I would say only came about for me with like combat, I guess, against certain enemies, which because there were plenty of times I was gonna rage quit and you wouldn't let me. So thanks for that. But overall, I wouldn't say it's that difficult. I would say, if anything, there were some parts that were like more tedious than anything else, having to go back and travel back to where you were before. But other than that, no, I would say it's fairly easy to follow along.
Honestly, all those points I think are excellent. And the difficulty of the game is sometimes it's story driven. You have to go through a slog of a boss fight to just hang on barely, but some are based purely on the player and their decisions, how hard they make it for themselves, how much they pay attention to the game, because each combat encounter is essentially a puzzle depending on how you go about it. It's not so much even as there's still bullet hell in it, but it's a lot of figuring out what you have to do. And if you pick up on little things here and there, you can make a fight easier for yourself, easier than it would normally be. Amanda, I know you got stuck on a spider boss fight in particular.
Oh my gosh!
But
let me.
That fight's no joke.
It's a very difficult fight if you don't know the different ways you could go about it. It's difficult in general. I had a tough time with it. In the fight, you could skip it entirely. And it's so cool the game gives you that option, right? And that's one of the only boss fights in the game that is also musically driven. You could follow the rhythm of the song that's playing in the background to time your dodges correctly. And I think that's awesome. I love it when games do that.
Yeah, I actually found myself wanting for more of that in two particular boss fights in the what I will refer to as the more difficult run of the game, because the music is such an integral component of this game where I wanted to dodge to the music even though that wasn't necessarily the mechanic at all. And I often found myself making mistakes because of that. I would find myself pressing keys like at a rhythm, and I was like, wait, no, I don't need to move right now. What am I doing?
Totally. And commenting on the more difficult run, again, for the combat encounters that you had trouble with, absolutely, hardest fights in the game. But for the majority of that run is actually quite easy. Quite easy based on what you're doing.
It's emotionally difficult.
Yes.
But not,
Yeah, absolutely.
Not gameplay wise. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Story driven again. Like, why is it easy? Because you're doing the easier option. You know what I mean? It's so cool.
One of the other things that I guess we can kind of talk about are secrets and inconsistencies within the game. So, for me, I'm not going to harp too much on the inconsistencies because I was kind of upset about them. And in hindsight, like, I can see how you were meant to pick up on it. I just feel like it wasn't clear enough. But in particular, early on in the game, depending on how you decide to play it, it's very easy to make one fatal mistake. And that will screw the rest of the run of your game. I fell into this trap. Amanda fell into this trap. I'm not going to say what it is, but all I'm going to say is that the game gives you choices. And the thing is, the game establishes rules, and that's an important thing for a video game. If you establish rules and you stick to them, players will buy into it no matter what, because they understand how the world works. As long as the world is consistent, that's fine. When your world starts being inconsistent, that's when you piss off players, and that's when gameplay feels bad. And so the problem with this is that in this particular instance, which I don't think is an uncommon mistake. I don't know. Apparently people were calling me a monster, but I would never have imagined otherwise, because the game tells you how it's going to show you when you have a certain option. And it doesn't do that in that particular encounter. And so in that case, like, it's like you were saying, unlearning the video game mentality, where I was just like, well, I have no choice and I'm going to die. So I'm going to do the thing I have to do, even if it's bad. And it screwed me for the rest of the run, and it guilted me over the one decision I made poorly. And the only reason it bothers me is because, like, I think it's purposefully, it ignores the rule that it set up just to try and get you to commit to the first playthrough that won't reveal too much to you. And while it's not awful, if you really want to nitpick it, I think it's a little cheap. And there's another boss fight that the way that you're supposed to engage with the fight is unlike any other fight in the game. Because normally you go through an encounter until you reach its end. This one requires you to engage and disengage a couple of times. And because that's not a common thing in the game, I basically didn't figure it out until the chat told me. Which I wondered how much longer I would have gone on just throwing myself blindly at it without figuring it out, just because it's not the way that you normally engage with encounters in the regular game.
I don't know if I would say, especially with that first encounter, I wouldn't say cheap. I don't know. I think it's kind of a brilliant way to just get the player going and understand like, hey, this is not that last game you played. It's not that one. This is something new. So we're gonna figure it out together. You know what I mean? And I think.
But did it not feel upsetting to you that you had an option, and the game told you it was going to show you when you had the option, and then didn't show it to you? So then you made a mistake, and it was because I know you did the same thing I did, where it was the only mistake you made, and so it screwed your whole first playthrough because the game lied to you.
Yes, but also no. I understand like why people would be upset about it, because like, yeah, it does mess with the rest of the playthrough, but at the same time, I'm glad I had the first playthrough when I look back at it. You know what I mean?
John, the thing with you is I totally understand, and your reason is valid for not knowing to do some of those things, because it is not obvious. But the one thing that bugged me just a little bit was when you were fighting this boss, there was a point where the boss stopped fighting you. And I thought that was a very clear tell of, oh, I need to stop what I'm doing now because the fight just changed. And you noticed it too. So that's where I thought you were going to be like, oh, something's happening now. Let me stop. But you didn't. That's the part that I was confused about. Otherwise, your reasoning is totally valid and I agree with.
I think it also just points out like what kind of like gamer you are. Like, are you gonna choose to spare now, or are you gonna keep killing? Because like that's what like we are technically trained to do when we play these games.
Right. That speaks to you as a gamer. You died. You don't have the determination in that instance to want to try again and save this person or spare her.
That's
right?
what I was going to say.
No, yeah, exactly. And that's the cool part of the game. Like it makes you think as a player, like, is what I'm doing the right thing? Do I care enough to do the right thing? Do I just want to get through the game?
Right. Are you determined enough to try to find another way?
And for how long are you determined to try to find another way?
Even though it looks hopeless.
Exactly.
Yo, that's deep.
That's fair, I suppose. Yeah.
Guys, there's so many layers to this game.
No,
it's like a parfait.
I love games that comment on player choice, and though this has a different commentary, but BioShock comments on player choice. Metal Gear does though have like skippable bosses and different tricks you can do with bosses and stuff like that. But I just love when a game comments on player choice and speaks directly to you, not just the character, not just the avatar that you have inherited.
Yeah. One of the last things I guess I'm gonna like with the last notes I have is regarding the secrets of the game. There are tons and tons and tons of secrets to find in this game. To my liking, some of them are like a little arcane. Like some of the stuff is like it almost requires like digging around in game files and that sort of thing. I see the pros and the cons. I don't have strong feelings either way, but like basically to discover some of them is the kind of thing where it's like I have to read up on it online and then go try this thing, which I can see the enjoyment, but I can also see where like some people might be like I want the secrets to be accessible by like my exploration, not necessarily having to dig around in like code or anything like that. Yeah. But I do appreciate just the sheer amount of detail that's in it. Regardless, I think there's a lot to discover, and I don't think that it's something to like be mad at the game for having too much. But do be aware that like, yeah, again, there is so much more to this game than you might initially expect.
Yeah. In terms of like the Easter eggs and the difficulty to get them, that's, I think, Toby Fox's love for old game design. And that a lot of traditional RPGs and classic games also follow the formula of you have to do a triple backflip and then jump in a lake and click down, down, up, up, left, left in order to unlock the secret base that's 100 miles away. It's stupid stuff you would never figure out on your own, you know? But he's in love with that kind of thing, so that's why he injects it in his game. But I just want to say my favorite Easter egg, I'm not going to spoil it totally, but there's a secret stat in the game called the fun stat. If you go into the code of the game, I want to say, and set your fun stat to certain numbers, random characters appear somewhere in the game that you could talk to and find out little stories about each of those characters. And I think that is a very neat Easter egg. Yeah.
Again, I see both sides. Like, I'm glad that's in there, and like I might be tempted to go in and mess with it and explore stuff like that because I am aware of quite a few. But at the same time, like I could see, especially like maybe a console gamer, like it might be upsetting that you might not have a way to ever even if you do know about him, you might not even be able to access it. because you can't, you don't have like a hex editor to go in and mess with the game files and stuff like that. But again, I don't think you can ding the game for having too much. And especially because, if I'm not mistaken, the game has like console-specific boss fights. So, like, on the Switch, you might get a specific boss fight. On the PC, I know I fought 2 different bosses that were unique to apparently the PC version and stuff like that. So I think that's cool. I think that's a nice way to do, I suppose. I'm not going to jump into Avengers. I'm not going to do it. But it's a nice way to do, like, platform-specific characters where it's still fair for everyone because everyone gets something different.
For sure. I have 2 points, if you don't mind, to bring up. One is super quick. It won't take a lot of time. And the other one, hopefully it won't take a lot of time, but I think it's important to talk about. The first thing is the music. I think the tracks of this game are brilliant and a bop, if you guys don't know me.
And varied, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're all so different and character related. It's great. But when I was in college, every morning, if I was feeling especially energetic, all of my walks to class, I would be listening to the Undertale soundtrack. So if any of you had a class with me early in the morning, I was probably just listening to Undertale because it's so, like, it puts a pep in your step, It's sometimes cheerful, it's sometimes badass. It evokes a wide variety of emotions from you, and I think the music tracks are brilliant in this game.
I don't dance. I can listen to music and sit there like a rock. But if you watch the stream, every time I fought Mettaton X, I was wiggling in my seat. That is quite a feat. It is quite a feat. So yeah, good job, Toby.
Good job, Toby, indeed. And the second thing I want to talk about, when it comes to Undertale, a lot of people that don't play video games, I say this is the game you need to play if you're not a big fan of video games or you haven't played one, because it's important for a big reason. And there's a subtle reason for it. And I don't know if you guys picked up on it, but how it treats social topics in the game.
Yeah.
It's very subtle, but the main protagonist is their gender is ambiguous, and there is a relationship between 2 females in the game. There is a pansexual character. This game, it's all about inclusion.
Yeah.
And Toby Fox does that very subtly. And it's also story related, because if you think about it, you're in a world where you're the only human and there's a bunch of monsters, and the game constantly makes you question, like, are these monsters good or bad? Should I be killing these monsters because they're named monsters? And again, subverting expectation. These quote-unquote monsters are the most inclusive, generous, not even commenting on a lot of those social topics in a way that is derogatory or anything, and yet we call them monsters. But the subtleties of this game tells you maybe the humans are the real monsters because they attack these guys unprovoked. But constantly they're referring to your character as they, them, because the gender is ambiguous, and of course they would say they, them. And there's a transgender character. I think the inclusion is subtle, and for a game that a lot of children play, I think it's important to put that in the game, because most importantly, it normalizes it for a lot of people. You know what I mean?
I think that's what's wonderful, because you fall in love with the characters for what the characters are as people, and it is these aspects of their identity they're not hidden, but they're also not like the core feature of the character. It's casual representation in what, from my point of view, seems like a positive way, I think.
Not only are the characters super inclusive towards you, the human, but Toby Fox is super inclusive towards a wide variety of gamers, and a lot will have a character in this game that they could relate to, and I think that is super, super cool too. And John, like you mentioned, that's not their defining character trait. It is just something that this world is like, yeah, I want to date you because I'm interested in you and I like you, and that's all I care about, And again, Undertale, within the world of Undertale and in our world, is sucks to say, but it's a place that is so distant and feels like sometimes, and it's nice to explore a world where people treat each other like people,
Yeah.
So that's why this game is very, very important. I think, and I think a lot of people should experience it.
Anything else?
You want to hear about the Legend of Sans in Smash Bros? How he got in? It'll take 2 seconds, just super fast because it's funny. So the true story is Toby Fox just went to Sakurai's house to discuss Sans because Undertale is super popular. Sakurai was interested. Put him in the game. That's the end of the story. But people have developed this meme/legend about the encounter between the two, that Toby Fox challenged Sakurai to Smash Bros. And said, if I beat you, I get to put Sans in Smash. And Toby Fox kicked his butt, and that's how Sans got in the game. But I think it's really funny that that meme exists. But
I like that version better.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I have. I'm done.
Well, in the case of Undertale, how do we vote? Okay, so here's the thing. I borderline strongly disliked my first playthrough of the game. I didn't hate it.
Borderline strongly.
I didn't hate it, but I also, like, I was neutral, leaning towards negative. I was like, it was fine. It wasn't, like, super engaging. There wasn't much. And then by the time I got to the end of the second playthrough, a certain narrative beat got me. And it's like the main thing I was exploring at the end. And I was like, oh, God. And then I did the third playthrough, and I hated everything I did. And today when I finished the game and I saw something that I did at the end, it broke me. And it was awful. So I think, obviously, there's a wealth of experience to be had here. That said, the core gameplay in and of itself is not necessarily very fun, but the flavor text around it is really, really fabulous. And it's $10, so go buy it. Go buy the game. For $10, yeah, and the subsequent playthroughs, the experience was so rich that it outweighed any issues that I had with the game. And I enjoyed it more and more as I played the game. So, yes, it's worth it.
So, let's see. I think this is a game that everybody should know, not just because of, like, social commentary, but, like, gamer commentary, and that story-wise, directing-wise, art direction, music, and the fact that it's all by this one guy who I feel like deserves the money. But I'm going to be real and say this suffers a little bit. This is like Last of Us, and maybe even a little worse because gameplay-wise, it's not very engaging. You can just watch this for free, and I feel like you get the same experience. So, in my opinion, it is not. I'm just gonna be real. You don't need to put your money down. I think he deserves the money, and I think that the writing is super smart and nearly genius. But I didn't buy the game, so I'm not going to tell you to buy the game. So I still say you should not buy it.
That's fair, but if I can interject, I think that playing the game and watching it would be two different experiences, because the game forcing you to press the button to complete certain actions is
totally different feeling.
Grueling.
Yeah.
But I respect your opinion.
I don't respect your opinion. No, man, this game is meta. And if you are lucky enough to not know anything about this game, even though now you've listened to this episode and now you know probably too much, but regardless, I think you should buy it. I think you should buy it because it is a completely different beast actually playing through it than watching it. Although watching it, I'm sure, is just as fun, maybe. I mean, I'm sure that's why there's the people who are watching us stream it. We're still having a great time watching. But I think it's also because they got to experience it firsthand, you know, and having to just suffer through so many boss fights and just wanting to rage quit and just wanting to cry and but not giving up because you are just filled with so much determination. All right? You don't get that from watching this game. You don't. I'm sorry. So I think you should buy it, though, especially because, look, it's $10. You don't got $10? I'll give you $10 to buy this game. I think it's great.
I'll take them.
You don't get them, but
right.
it's a. What?
If I may just say that, like, I value replayability, and because to me the gameplay itself, like the game of the game, is probably not worth going back to. That's a big reason.
Dude, this
why
is the
also
only
I don't-
game I've ever played 3 times.
And the gameplay changes.
Yeah. I wish you could all see Palazzo's face on the call as these opinions are being spouted. He is wide-eyed, his mouth is open.
I would like everyone to know I love Nick Benetatos with all my being. I respect his opinions, however, I despise them. Anyway.
Because now you are done with the game now. Like, you're not touching it again. I know that.
You don't know me.
I don't need to. I could go back to it, though. I love the game.
Or John, at least.
There are certain things I'm interested in exploring that I might, but it would not be an unsafe assumption to say that I'm probably done. But I'm not a good metric for that because I don't replay things, period.
Right. Yeah, that's actually fair because not everyone really cares about replayability, I guess.
Amanda, do you think go back and do these runs? 'Cause now that you know exactly what happens.
Just because technically I haven't gotten every single ending, and like now that we've talked about it a bit more, I am curious, especially also looking up a lot of the lore. There were things I missed.
I think the celebration of the game is the fun part because everyone has a different experience. So if you were to watch someone else play it on YouTube or something, that's as valid as playing it again yourself.
Shout out to Flowey on our streams in the chat, has played the pacifist ending 20 times.
Boom bam.
There you go.
And it's short. Like, you could totally replay it for nostalgia in like 10 years if you want.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a fair point. Yep.
Who's next?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh my god, this is gonna be a dramatic episode.
My thing is, I love games with story and narration and lore, and I absolutely love that kind of stuff. But I'm also a big proponent where if playing the game itself isn't fun, just like learning more about the things that happen is cool. I kind of have a problem with that because like at that point, you might as well watch a cartoon. Kids love the game because it's easy. And they can play it over and over because it's easy and it is a really good story. But I feel like, especially, and I am one of those people who really values replayability. And yes, you can play it 3 different times and get 3 different endings and talk to different people and experience different things. But after it, you are like, especially because it gets harder. And after that one point where you're just like dumb hard, you're just like, all right, cool. I played it on super easy. I played it on medium. I played it on super hard. Kind of done with this game. And even at $10 or $15 for PS4, it is Game Legend, so that makes it hard. Because he does deserve your money. But I am leaning more towards a do not buy. Unless you can pick it up for free.
So, that's me then.
Oh no, what's gonna happen?
Wonder how this is gonna go. Uh-huh.
This game will make you laugh. It will make you cry, I think. It will make you, it's thought-provoking. It will make you rage, certainly, based on what I've seen from John's playthrough. But if
I thought I stayed pretty composed.
If you stay determined and fill all orifices of your body with hope and friendship, you will persevere. And just based on what the game does, it is a video game legend. What it does for the gaming industry, I think, is different and cool and something everyone should experience. And the social commentary within the game is also something everyone, I think, should experience, because I can't think of another game that tackles those subjects like this game does. And it's super important for a lot of people to play. And I want you to give Toby Fox all of your money, not just $10. And for that reason, it is an absolute must buy.
And donate to his Patreon, but I don't know, man.
No, I agree. Like Palazzo, yeah, he did so much for the gaming industry, and it's very important. The evil side of me, though, is like I don't need to play it.
Yeah, like I always support the developers, and I'm like, they deserve your money because they spent a lot of time on it. But at the same time, it's just like, you don't deserve my money.
I would say, Nick, I don't know because I never watched the game before playing it, but I will say I have to imagine it's a very different experience to, to watch me press a button to do something that I don't want to do, to then you this, especially because the game addresses you so directly as a player. For it to be talking to you and then, for you to be presented with this option and then for you to have to press the key and sometimes to have to do it repeatedly for depending on what it is. It's heartbreaking sometimes, especially, one of the secrets of the thing that does not exist in the neutral run, but is a big element of the actual story once you get to the other stuff, particularly struck a nerve with me as an individual. And so it was, yeah,
it's really cool, but I don't need to spend $10 for the game to tell me I'm a piece of shit. I know that already. I don't.
Well, I'm talking to sometimes even the happy ending too. Because for me, the biggest factor when I'm considering a game or really anything, I guess, but particularly in games, is the experience. All these factors that we talk about for me just build into what is the experience like. And for me, this was an experience worth having.
Yeah. And Nick, you've already watched it before, right? I feel like there's no impetus then to go and play it once you know a lot of what the game is, because it is very story
So
heavy.
I was going to say my two top favorite games of all time, BioShock and Metal Gear, except for Metal Gear 5, I watched them first and then was so thrilled by it that I went to go buy it after. So I actually had spoiled the whole game for myself and still wanted to go out and buy it after.
That's fair.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
And if those are those cream of the crop games that I'm looking for.
All right, but in the case of Undertale, by the skin of Nicholas Palazzo's teeth, you should buy it though. Go give all of your money to Toby Fox's Patreon.
Yes. If anyone wants to see Deltarune see the light of day, please give him money.
That is true.
Very true.
Deltarune is an anagram for Undertale, if you didn't know.
I did.
Wow.
He's so clever.
How did I not see that?
Whatever.
On that note, I think that's going to be it for this week. Thank you all so much for listening. Thanks to everyone who hung out on stream. Personally, this is me, Giancarlo, speaking as an individual. It was a lot of fun to hang out with people on stream for this particular experience because people are so passionate about this game. So thanks to everyone who showed up. We'll talk at you next week.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Oh, no, he's not
Oh,
happy.
no.
Wait, I'll be more cheerful. Goodbye.
That was just creepy.
I don't even know if I like that one. That was,
No, that was just weird.
why was that?
Should I do it like Papyrus?
Yeah.
Goodbye. This is Alphys.